to the winner by majority decision, and now the unified, undisputed world champion, Artur Beterbiev.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
And just like that, I got my buddy John, the Iceman SCULLY, in the house, assistant trainer to the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world, Artur Beterbiev. How are you doing, my friend?
Everything's great. How are you?
Everything is good, man. I've been dying to talk to you to get your reaction. We're a few weeks from the fight now, so some of the I guess it's kind of backlash, which I was surprised at. Me personally, I told you before the fight, I was picking Artur to win. I thought he won it by 2 points, but John, after this fight, some of the backlash, especially from fighters, some people were acting like it was one of the worst decisions in history, which it really surprised me. And it's funny because some of those people watched the fight again and then had a change of heart. And for instance, Tim Bradley, who I watched the fight on ESPN,
Right.
and they were very kind of, well, I thought they were favoring Bivol in the fight. When the fight was over, a few days afterwards, Tim watched the fight again and he thought that Artur pulled it out. So before we talk about all that, though, tell me about your experience over there. I saw a few clips of you. You said it was super hot.
Yeah.
But what was the experience like over there?
It was hot. It was like really hot. And I'll tell you a funny thing, like everybody in their mind had, like, if I say to you China, instantly you'll have your picture of what China might be like, right? And so when you say to me Saudi Arabia, I'm thinking sand dunes.
Right.
And I said, man, they must have built a hotel, and there's like a street and maybe there's a gym and everybody knows the gym because it's only 2 buildings in the whole city, and we're going to walk over to the gym. And when I got there, I was like, man, like we got there at nighttime. And I said, man, this is like the Vegas Strip. Like the hotel is huge. There's 2 Hilton hotels right next to each other. There's a big mall next door. There, across the highway is a like a baseball or tennis court or something, and there's people out there playing under the lights. And the highway was like a strip, and it was busy. And I said, man, it's amazing. I go to the mall, and the first day was so funny. I walk into the mall, and the girls, they have their face covered, right?
Right.
You can see their eyes. And they come over to me as soon as I walk in. They got the little piece of paper with the perfume on it, so I can smell the perfume and see if I want to buy it. It was just like America, except the women had the hijab, I guess they call it. They had the thing on their face, but everybody was helpful. Sometimes I'm the type, like, and I did this. I always go like walking through the neighborhood. I want to see the real people, right? So I go through the hood, whatever the hood is, I go through it, right? So I'm there, and I knew where I was at, but I asked this guy, I see this guy walking. I say, hey, man, could you tell me where the hotel is? I just wanted to see how friendly he'd be. And he was like, oh, man, come on, I'll give you a ride. I'll drive you. I'm like, no, I'll walk, but just which way is it? And he's, oh, well, all right, it's down there. And, so everybody was super helpful, super friendly. The last week, right before, like 2 days before the fight, 3 days before the fight, I got a tremendous toothache. It was horrible. And I'm like, man, I got to wait till I get home. I got to wait. But the next day it was worse. And I said, I got to go to the dentist, whatever I have to pay. So I go to the dentist. They do the x-rays. He looks at my teeth. He's checking them out. Then he does a cleaning. And then he told me, maybe you should floss more. And, he gave me some advice, right? He said, right now, I think you're going to be okay. It's all right. I go to pay the bill. It wouldn't accept my credit card because it said I need the PIN. I said, well, we don't have pins. There is no pin. Just run the card. He said, it needs a pin. I said, well, I've never had a pin in my life. As that was happening, the doctor comes out. He's, oh, what's the problem? He said, his card needs a pin. He doesn't have one. The guy says, don't worry about it. It's on the house. Go ahead. And he let me, and I left. I didn't have to pay anything.
Wow. Good luck having that happen in America.
No, that's what I did. I took a picture of the building outside, and when I got home, I posted a thing on Facebook, and I said, stuff that would never happen in America. And I told the story.
Wow. That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's been a couple of weeks, so now you're experiencing the fight. I want to ask you something, because a couple of other people I know were asking. You weren't physically in the corner during the fight. Why was that? Was that a last minute change?
I was the fourth guy. Okay. I was like floor. The reason being, Artur's amateur coach from Russia showed up, I guess, before the fight. He was with us, and that was the guy who trained Artur as a kid. And as we got closer, they were like, Artur, we got to work something out. He wants the guy to help, like be in the corner. It's a huge moment, And I said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll just, and they were like, all right, look, you just give us your instructions from the floor and we'll let him go up. So he went up.
Okay, because I was looking for you. I did see you in the ring after the fight, but during the fight, I figured it was some kind of thing like that. Right. But I'm sure you watched the fight since then. What were your impressions of the fight? It was a good fight. It was a tough fight.
Yeah, I have not watched it yet, but I will say this. I think sometimes when a guy like Artur, he's killing like Roy Jones. When Roy Jones had his first tough fight, people were like, he lost. I said, no, man, he had a tough fight. He was proven to be human. He didn't lose, he won, but you can't give. I think sometimes people, when they find out the guy's human, they go too far in the other direction to give the other guy. They go, oh, he lost. No, he didn't lose. Come on, it was a very close fight. Bivol boxed very well at times, but I think he moved a little too much. And, there comes a time when you got to give some credit to the guy who's really obviously trying to make the fight,
Right.
Because if everybody utilized their lateral movement, imagine if Roy Jones said, I'm not going to get touched. He wouldn't get touched. He'd win every fight 12 rounds to nothing. Nobody would get knocked out. There'd be no highlight reel knockouts, and he wouldn't get touched. But he engaged. He wanted to, he created some excitement. I think Bivol obviously realized the power. You know what I mean? You could see his face, was all banged up, and you could see the body shots. I think he realized there's only one way I'm winning this fight, and that's by moving and outboxing this guy. He knew there was no other way.
What were your thoughts like around round 9 or 10? I mean, you obviously knew it was a close fight. Me personally, watching, I wasn't there, but watching, I really thought Artur came on heavily in those last the latter half of the fight. I'm wondering if you felt the same.
Oh, for sure. If you would have stopped it after the 6th round, I said, I don't know. I think we're behind, but he finished super strong. And, Bivol was really like there was 2 times. And I know one was in the 12th round and one was in maybe the 7th or the 8th. You might know better than me. There was moments when I said to myself, we got him. We're going to stop him. Like Artur finally, let's just track him down. Let's do this. It was either the 7th or the 8th and definitely the 12th. Obviously Artur finished very strong. That's what won him the fight, the last 3 rounds or whatever it was. But I think it's obviously, for many different reasons, a fight that there has to be a rematch. 100%.
Agreed. And I think I felt that way in the 7th round. Bivol had landed a few shots and Artur caught him with a counter shot, and it visibly affected Bivol, and he kind of weaved across the ring. And that was one of those moments, Ice, like I said, oh, I said the same thing. He's got him. He's got him. But to Bivol's credit, look, Bivol he was undefeated for a reason. He was a champion for a reason.
Oh,
And I think you're right.
Yeah, world class.
People expect they look at Artur's record, they see he's knocked everyone out. So I think a lot of people just expect that it's going to happen, but there is another man in that ring, and Bivol was a tough, good fighter.
Of course, 100%.
So I want to put a few things on the screen, and this is just some reactions from people in boxing. Now, Edgar Berlanga.
Come on, Egg. I saw that.
I know you saw it. I mean,
Come on. Stop it.
Exactly. Now, Shakur Stevenson, boxing is so terrible. Richardson Hitchens. Can someone with a real boxing brain explain to me how did Bivol lose this fight?
Right.
Well, and then Andre Ward. Now, 116, 112, I thought was not a great score, me personally, but Andre felt that Bivol won the fight as well. But there was that, John, it was outrage. I thought it was a close fight. I didn't see that this was a robbery in any way.
Right, of course. That's ridiculous. Like, a close fight and a tough fight is not a robbery. It's not. It's just, it's a close, world-class, high-level guys, right? There's going to be tough rounds, close rounds. And a lot of rounds in the fight were hard to score, I think.
Yeah.
Appeared to me. And, you go in the other direction on a couple of them, and it's a different outcome. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. It's a close fight. A robbery, listen, for me, Roy Jones in the Olympics was a robbery, right?
Right.
I felt Chavez and Whitaker was a robbery.
Right.
Fight was not a robbery. That's ridiculous. Because I'm a critic. Like, when I'm watching the fight, if we're losing, I'm gonna say it, because I can't fake it. We've got to turn this around, right? And I'm saying, when I'm watching it, I'm saying, all right, we're doing damage. We're closing strong. And when it ended, I said to myself, hey, let me shut this door. The dogs are barking like crazy.
No problem.
So when it was over, I said, it's going to be a draw, or it's going to be 1 or 2 points in either direction. It's that type of fight. And I will say this, and everybody, and these guys should know better. Andre and those guys, they should know better. But they have to say something on social media. It's the thing. Everybody goes to their page to find out what they're saying. Being at the fight and watching on TV is two different worlds. It's not the same fight. And I can remember as a amateur being at a pro fight, and I'm like, man, the fight went this way and whatever. And then when I watched it on TV, I go, man, was I at the same fight? This almost didn't happen. I don't know where it is. And I'll give an example for your listeners. I'll give an example. When I fought Tony Thornton, if you remember Tony, the punching post man, right? He was number one.
Sir.
We fought in the Blue Horizon, and the ring's 14 feet 3 inches by 14.3. It's a tiny ring. We fought, and I specifically remember at the end of one of the rounds, like the 7th round, and I caught him with a left hook, and I actually made a mental note. I made a mental note of it. I said, man, I gotta see that hook. That was a beautiful hook, right? When I went to watch it on the tape later, a couple of days later, I had to watch it 2 or 3 times because I missed it, because it wasn't nearly as big as I knew it was. You know what I mean? It didn't look on video. So there's punches that I'm seeing up close land. I'm in the corner. I'm right there. There's punches I'm seeing land that obviously the effects of them are not being portrayed on national TV, worldwide TV.
Right. Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algieri, I speak with them a lot, and they both picked Bivol to win. Paulie actually I don't know if he meant it, but Paulie was picking Bivol by possible KO. So I had a friendly bet with those guys. No money, just a friendly bet. I said, all right, I got Artur. When the fight was over, Chris, I was texting him, say, hey guys, I won the bet. And Paulie said, do you really think he won? I said, yeah, I do. I thought it was a close fight, but I thought that Artur won. Chris Algieri was borderline mad and started, saying, oh, this is there's no way it's a tragedy. Only casuals think Artur won. I want to play a short clip. This, I think, is from Chris's podcast that he does, but let me see if this will play.
I find it really hard to find a way that you get Beterbiev ahead in the fight. A draw, sure, I could see that. I have Bivol up, but dude, 8-4, 8 rounds to 4, 16 to 1, 116 to 112 for Beterbiev in this fight blows my mind. And we always tend to do that. We always harp on that one bad call that's so far off. None of the judges got it right. We had a draw and then 2 guys going for Beterbiev, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it was a robbery. I don't using the R word. I hate using that word, especially for fights that are close. Was the fight close? Absolutely. Did I have Bivol winning? No question in my mind.
So I don't know what your thoughts are on what Chris said. He did say it was a close fight. I think people are harping on the 116, 112.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If you think about it, you say, okay, if the other judge didn't do the 116, 112, if he did, by 1 point, people might not even have a problem with it. Like, that thing is their problem, even though they might have still agreed with it if he had him by 1 point. You know what I mean? And like I say, there's a difference between 116, 112 and 118, 110. That's a big difference, but it's only 2 points.
That's right.
Like, it on paper, when you see 116, 112 and 118, 110, it looks humongous difference. It's 2 points, right? So you can't tell me 2 of those rounds weren't close enough that could have went the other way. The fights easily could be flipped if the certain rounds went a certain way. I think we won the ending clearly. That was, in my mind, that's important. Like, you can't not win the last few rounds and then really say, I think I won. If I'm going to lose the last 3 rounds and I'm basically running, whatever you want to call it, running, moving a lot, moving excessively. If I'm avoiding the contact, clearly avoiding contact, I wouldn't feel like a winner. If I was avoiding contact. It's one thing to be Roy Jones and you're tattooing me while you're moving, but when you're moving just to get out of the way, it's hard to feel like a winner.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Chris was much more delicate in what he just said to me. He was, now this is the emotions right after the fight or something. He really felt that it was a complete robbery. There's no way you could give it to Artur. Andre Ward was saying the same thing, that he thought that Bivol won by 4 points. So it's boxing, I don't have a problem with people saying my guy won or my guy won, but I think what I was reacting to was people saying, like, you're a casual if you think that Beterbiev won, or you don't know boxing, and I just don't think that's the case. That's
not. Look, you see, like I say, a couple rounds go the other way, and it's a completely different scorecard, and it's just the way it is. But it's a good fight. It's a high level fight. Like I say, I would rather be the guy that was coming forward, that was obviously, you can't say Artur wasn't trying to make the fight. I mean, he was trying to make the fight, and it kind of reminded me in a way the framework of Leonard and Hagler. It's the similar idea. Like, some people thought Leonard whitewashed him, and there's other people going, what are you talking about? Hagler kept coming forward. He was on him the whole way. He was digging on him the whole way. Ray was just trying to get out of there. So who's right? Who's wrong? Who's accurately portraying what they're saying happened?
So Artur is 39. I believe he's 39, right?
I think he's
still 38.
I think he's like a month away or something.
Okay. So he goes 12 rounds for the first time in his pro career. Well, first time in his life.
Yeah.
Did you see any slippage in him at all? at 38, going on 39, or was it just that he was in against a tough opponent?
He was in with a master boxer. Like if he was in with a guy who was tough opponent, but he was a banger, right? We're going home 3 rounds, 4 rounds. We're still going home. His power did not leave him. If anybody fights a guy who boxes that well and is that careful and is that, precision, you're gonna not look great. I mean, look at all the other guys, the punchers that fought him and weren't able to do anything. You know what I mean? So, Artur obviously finished super strong. He had him on the run. Like if you're a fighter, you know who you'd rather be. I don't want to be the guy whose face is all bashed up and I'm moving and I'm constantly moving. There's a reason. There's a reason you're moving. Like you don't move because the guy doesn't hit hard,
Yeah. So obviously the question is, I think everyone knows there should be a rematch. Will there be a rematch? Because I'm hearing there will be. There wasn't contractually a rematch. And then some people are saying it's only going to be during Riyadh season, which I think is like a year from now. I might have my dates wrong, but are you hearing anything about a rematch? Because I think it really makes sense for this fight.
Yeah, for sure. I have not heard anything. I wait for them to call me, the team, Mark Ramsey, they call me. He calls me. I basically know what you know. I see stuff on the internet and, who knows what's going on behind the scenes. I know, I guess Eddie Hearn said he wasn't going to work with Turkey anymore. I don't know what that means. But yeah, so I really don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because really, a lot of fights have these contractual rematches on fights you don't really want to see a rematch too.
Yeah.
This is one of those fights where it seems like there's unfinished business because it was a very close fight.
Right. It wasn't decisive. Yeah, it wasn't decisive.
Yeah.
Right.
And hopefully it happens. I mean, you and I, we can assume here, you would think that Turkey's going to do the right thing and these guys are going to fight again.
Right. It wouldn't make sense if they didn't.
So how did you stay? How long were you there? Did you get there a week before the fight?
3 weeks.
You were there for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was life like there?
It was, like I say, it was very hot.
Right.
It was, when you walk out, there was one time, put it this way, there was, when you open an oven and that blast of heat hits you.
Yep.
That's what it was like every time you walk out of the hotel. And there was one time when I walked about 40 yards. I walked about 40 yards and I turned around and I went back to the hotel. This is too much. This is too hot. But what was cool was they had in the mall, they had like a sporting goods shop, and sneakers and all that. And they had 2 baseball jerseys facing each other on a hanger, Red Sox and the Yankees.
Oh,
So
nice.
even over there, they knew, right? We also, there was an area, there was a food area about 2 blocks away behind the mall that was next to us. And they had Cheesecake Factory, they had Starbucks, they had Tim Hortons, they had Dairy Queen, so it was like being in a town where I live. And I ate at Cheesecake Factory a couple times with the guys and hung out. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So when you eat at a Cheesecake Factory there, is it just like the ones in America?
Exactly the same. You wouldn't know the difference. You would not know the difference at all.
So you were there for 3 weeks. Did you leave a day after the fight, a few days after the fight, or were you out of there right away?
We left the next night, late at night, and not late, but like 9 o'clock. We flew to Dubai, and we were in the airport. And let me tell you, like I put a YouTube video up. The Dubai airport is so nice that they have, when you go to wait for the plane, you're in the terminal. and you go in your area to wait for your plane, gate 64. You know what it looks like in America, right? Well, over there, it's like being in a Hilton hotel. Like the seats have pillows on them, and they had food there, and I wait in line. I order whatever I ordered, and they didn't charge you for it. They give it to you for free. Drinks and sandwiches, and but it was really nice. Like it was. And then at the table when you're waiting for the plane, you have your little seating area, and they had tables with chocolates on them, and it was definitely different. Yeah, for sure.
I was going to say that's really different. And Bruce Gass wants to know the prices. Were they the same? Were they comparable to the U.S. at Cheesecake Factory?
I don't even know, because they were in their prices. So whatever it was, I just paid it with a credit card. So I don't even know how much I paid. To be honest with you, I might be looking at a $500 dinner bill here.
Well, this fight really was for me the fight I look forward to the most.
Right.
All year, especially like I spoke with you a few months ago. The fight had been postponed. There's a lot of boxing to go this year, but I think the biggest night, obviously, is the heavyweights coming up in only less than 2 months now. Usyk and Fury have their rematch coming up,
right?
And I know we'll talk about it more when it's closer. But I was pulling for Usyk. I wanted Usyk to win. He got the knockdown, but it was still a close fight. What are your thoughts on that fight, the rematch?
Well, did you see what Fury said, I guess yesterday, about the baby? You saw that?
I did not.
He said his wife suffered a miscarriage the day before his fight with Usyk.
I did not see that.
And Usyk or Usyk's trainer or somebody, wrote this nice thing on Twitter, like, I'm very sorry to hear it, and I hope everything's okay, and so that was, I wouldn't imagine he's lying about something like that, just to make himself look good. So that was pretty heavy. But in terms of, even without that, in terms of the fight, I think I told you last time, I thought, obviously Usyk fought a great fight, and I was amazed how small he was compared to Fury. But there was a moment. There's two things that stand out to me. One is that there was a moment, like around the 7th or 8th, when I thought Tyson had him. Like his body language and everything. I said, man, Usyk's not going to make it through this round. Like, this is crazy. And then Usyk came through, and then Usyk actually knocked Tyson down like 2 rounds later. He came on like an animal. But, I always hold out the idea that Tyson, he's a little different, I think, up there. And depending on his mood and whatever, and, he's proven that he can turn things around. He's proven that he can, with Wilder, he can be dramatic and change things around on a big scale. I think if anyone could come back and beat Usyk, I think it would be him. I think he fought the wrong fight, and I think that was clear from the beginning. That I was surprised he fought like he did. I would think he would change his whole mentality for the rematch, and it would be, what would be amazing would be, and I'd actually hope for this, just for the sake of things, like if he was to beat Usyk again, now you might have one of the greatest trilogies in history, like one of the most anticipated third fights ever. You know what I mean? I think for boxing's sake, if Fury could win, the third fight would just be phenomenal.
Wow. And I have to ask this too, because that fight is, I don't know, 6 weeks away. But there's another fight, if you want to call it a fight, coming up in a few weeks. It's Mike Tyson, and Jake Paul. And I don't call this a fight. Netflix, it's a business play. Netflix, it's not a pay-per-view. They just want people to subscribe to Netflix. There is a rematch, Katie Taylor and Serrano on the undercard. But now I haven't checked in lately, but when they first made this fight, which they weren't even calling a fight at first, they were saying event. I believe they said it was 2-minute rounds.
Right.
They were also saying it was a legitimately sanctioned fight. Now, you and I both know boxing they make up their own rules sometimes, but I mean, I have my own thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on that upcoming event?
I haven't, I don't think I'm going to watch it. Honestly, I really don't think I'm going to, but I've seen clips because, if I'm scrolling on Instagram, like I'm not interested in it. Like I'm not thinking about it, but if I see a clip, I'm going to, oh, what's this? I'll check it out. Now here's the overruling thing to me. And I think this trumps everything. The fact that Mike Tyson has not killed Jake Paul yet at the press conferences, and the fact that Jake Paul feels no problem with pushing Mike and disrespecting Mike tells me he knows something, right? Because there's no way in the world he's that brave. I don't care what he says. I don't care. And I know, don't tell me Mike is an old man. Mike on the inside is still Mike Tyson. You're not pushing him and disrespecting him to his face, and he's not going to crack you. He's not going to bite you. He's not going to do something. His boys with him are going to not do something. The fact that Jake Paul feels comfortable putting his hands on Mike tells me something's not right. Yeah.
I'm with you, and I know a guy who I used to work with at HBO who he's pretty high up over at Netflix. He told me about this when they were about to announce it, which I think it caught a lot of people off guard. He couldn't tell me much. These were through text messages, but he was really cryptic because he was calling it an event. And I said, well, I mean, is Mike Tyson going to try and hurt Jake Paul in the fight with punches? And he said, that's the hope. So it was just real cryptic and weird. And I'm like you, I haven't taken enough time to invest in seeing, is it a real fight? Isn't it? I did think at first they said it was a real, like it would count on their records. But then when I heard there were 2-minute rounds, wouldn't that be unprecedented that it's not a real fight? But again,
it's silly. It's silly. This is the era we live in. This is the world we live in, and I think every real boxing person, to me, you're not a real boxing person if you don't want him to smash Jake Paul. Like you don't want him to decapitate Jake Paul. And like I say, it's like you get the old dog in the neighborhood, and 10 years ago you wouldn't even walk by the dog's house because everybody in the neighborhood was scared of the dog, right? Now the dog can barely walk and everybody's walking by and the kids are sticking their middle finger up and throwing acorns at them and they're not worried about him at all. And I'm the one, I'm like, 10 years ago, you wouldn't even have walked by his house. You would have went the other way because, you would have been scared to death. Now you're brave because you can barely see. So that, like I say, that tells me all I need to know is that he's feeling comfortable, like putting his hands. You see, I saw a thing and I don't know if it was a press conference or what it was, but he pushed Mike. Now, there's nobody I don't care who you are. When have you ever seen anybody, push Mike? Certainly in the 1980s, you didn't see anybody push Mike, right? So that tells me something right there.
I was at the first press conference they had before it was postponed was in Harlem. And I went to the press conference and it felt very much like a show. Like I was going to a show and I'm with you. I mean, we remember Mike Tyson press conferences, especially the one 2002 or 3, whenever he fought Lennox.
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah. I mean, it was, Mike Tyson was someone that you didn't mess with him at all. You didn't play with him. He just wasn't one of those guys. And
that's what
you're right. And you're right on point because Jake Paul is pushing him now. I mean, Mike Tyson's 58 years old, but Scully, people are talking about this fight though, like it's real and it's business. Netflix is winning, man. They're winning because this is exactly what they wanted.
Well, listen, here's the problem. And some of them, those people might be watching me and they're going to be mad at me in about 15 seconds. But there are people who, if Jake Paul does well or beats Mike or knocks Mike out, right? They are going to treat it and think of it as if he knocked out the guy from 1988. That's how they're going to view it, and that's how they're going to remember it. These are the people that are driving the fight. These are the people that are going to cause it to break some kind of records. You know what I mean? I'm not one of them. So,
yes, I don't know if this is really similar, but when you talk about the kind of people, driving the people to buy it, even though it's Netflix. When Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor,
I didn't watch it.
Well, I'll tell you this. Now, I did watch it, but we all knew what was going to happen. But I don't know if you remember this, but it was Showtime, so they did their All Access show.
Yeah.
Every episode, and this was by design, I found out later, they never showed Floyd training. Floyd was buying a car, and Floyd was riding his bike, and meanwhile they were showing Conor training. And Ice, like, some of these fans were literally, did you see Conor training? He's gonna kick Floyd's ass. Floyd's not even training.
Listen. My brother told me that Conor's too big and he hits too hard. I said, listen, and this is exactly what I told him. I said, listen, you are exactly the kind of idiot that they are trying to market this fight to, because you believe that. You actually believe that. And here's what I said. There's a reason they fought Floyd. There's two. One, because that's where the money is.
Right.
And two, because they know Floyd knows how to play the game. If they would have fought Keith Thurman, Keith would have decapitated Conor in a minute. The first time he caught him with a hook, he would have obliterated him. You know what I mean? So Keith wouldn't have played the game. And so Floyd knew how to play the game, and he did. And I'll say this. I've boxed with a million novice guys in my life, right? And a lot of them probably think deep down they could beat me. You know why? Because I didn't try to hurt them. I just played with them. In their mind, it was a major event. In my mind, I was just, loosening up and getting, having a little fun or whatever. So it's two different perspectives. And, Floyd had to make it a show to make the money out of it. I would assume something similar is here. Because like I say, there's no way, not just the fight, but at a press conference, like, it's one thing to fight a guy, you could keep away and you could box him and everything. But to be there at a press conference and nobody's in between you and you feel the nerve, the guts to push Mike Tyson, somebody told you, don't worry, he's not going to kill you. That's what happened. I don't care what anybody says. Like, Jake Paul is not that brave,
Right.
And he's not that stupid either.
Right. I agree. And really quick, getting back to the Floyd thing, I really think it was brilliant that they didn't show Floyd training, because they knew that these MMA fans were going to watch these and they were going to say, look at this. And meanwhile, we both know Floyd Mayweather was never out of shape for a fight. He was training his ass off.
Let me tell you something about the mentality. And I hope this idiot is watching, right? I hope he's on the internet. This guy, I won't say his name. You might know who he is, but he's on the internet. He's one of these guys, right? Now, that fight was however many years ago, 6 years, whatever it was. The guy has not spoken to me since, because here's what he told me, like the day before the fight, he told me, him and his friend was like an MMA guy, and we're chatting, and they're telling me he's going to be in better shape than Floyd because he does 7-minute rounds. And I'm like, listen, man, you were a fighter before. What are you talking about, 7-minute rounds? I said, you kidding me? And he goes, he's much bigger. He's going to be the puncher. I said, let me tell you two things. Number one, he's going to be exhausted. And number two, Floyd is the puncher in this fight. When things get down and dirty and it comes down to it, Floyd is the one who's going to be doing the damage. Now, and the guy was adamant. So, of course, the next day I found out what happened, and I went in on him. I just tortured him on the internet, right? And that was, 7 years ago. I have not spoken to him, so he's never said another word to me because I hammered him on his ignorance, because he was a pro fighter at one time. he was supposed to know better, but he got fooled. And I hate to see people get bamboozled. You know, I'm not going for the okadoke. I know what it is.
Well, a lot of people out there do get fooled, and I think that this fight or event, whatever it is, I think Netflix, they're a business. Their
Yeah.
purpose is to make money, get subscribers.
Yeah.
They're going to get a lot of subscribers, and
Yeah.
I don't know. People ask, is it good? Is it bad for boxing? I mean, I just look at this as, to me, it's an event. Now, I grew up watching Mike Tyson. I certainly don't want to see Mike Tyson knocked out by Jake Paul. It is a real fight. It could happen, but who knows what we're going to get come that night.
Right. Yeah. It's a, I don't think anybody knows what to make of it. I mean, real people, like Jake's fans, it's a real fight. That's it. He's going to win, blah, blah, blah. But I think people like me, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know if they're going to fight for real. I don't know if they're going to hug after. I don't know what's going on,
Hey, you brought up Tony Thornton before.
Yeah.
And the reason why I know him, I'm from Jersey. He's from Jersey. He's from
Right,
Glassboro, New Jersey.
Yeah.
The punching postman. Did you beat him in that fight?
I lost a 10-round decision. Not an excuse, but like I was cut in my this is what makes the fight memorable for me. I was cut in my previous fight in 3 places, once over the eye and two under the eyes. When I fought Tony, it was really soon after the previous fight, and sometimes cuts look like they're healed, but they're not. And literally in the first round, they all opened up like immediately. And I always remember around the 9th round, Rudy Battle, the referee.
Yep.
Rudy came to the corner and he said, you might have to stop it if the bleeding continues, because it was in my eyes and everything. And I said to Rudy Battle, I said, if you stop this fight, I'm going to kill you. And he goes, hey, calm down. I said, listen, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to kill you if you stop this fight. And so I went to 10 rounds. I lost a decision. And he came over to me after and he was laughing and he kind of tapped me on the butt. And he said, man, you got a lot of heart, man. You're a good kid. Good kid.
Thornton was a good fighter, man. But I think a lot of people, their only exposure to him was when he fought Roy.
Right. And
it's like very unfair.
He was such a tough, he was a real professional. And I noticed, and I always gave him credit for that. Everybody I've ever fought, I've been able to gauge their willingness, their determination, their conditioning, right? And usually, I'm waiting for some sign of a drop off and then I'm going to step it up, right? And one thing about Tony Thornton, he was really consistent. Like every round, he was right back at full power. Like he was a real, what they call a workman-like professional. He was really tough, really good. And he was a good guy. I had heard he was a good guy. And it's funny because I always tell this story. I was really losing weight badly. It was really hard to make the weight for the fight. And right before the weigh-in, I was in a room in the bathroom, spitting into the sink, like trying to lose 1 more ounce just in case. And somebody knocked on the door and said, come on, man, you got to hurry up. I said, all right. We were at the Wyndham Franklin Plaza in downtown Philadelphia. So I go to the scale. I'm just out of the bathroom spitting. And Tony Thornton's giving me the evil eye, right? And I said to him, I said, listen, man, you don't have to do that today. And I wanted to say, like, look, I just came out of the bathroom. I'm trying to suck. I'm hoping I make it. I'm hoping I make the weight. And but I had heard he was a real nice guy. They said he was a nice guy. I said, man, you're a postman, the tough guy act. I know you're a nice guy. Relax.
You know what? You just talked about like how you struggled to make weight for that fight. You're trying to lose an ounce. How do you feel? And I didn't mean to even bring this up, but you brought up the weight factor. But when some of these fighters today, and I have to say Ryan Garcia, who was fighting for a title, and said, I don't care. I'm not going to make weight, and shows up 3 pounds over. And it's happened in other fights too with different fighters. Like the sense of urgency or the professionalism to make weight. How do you feel as a fighter? You just described that situation. You're trying to lose a few ounces for a non-title fight. And guys now just don't care about making weight. How does that make you feel?
Well, they're making so much money. Like, think about it. He got fined, I think, $500,000 every pound. Like, I think he lost $1.5 million. And I found out later he didn't care because he had bet on himself to win, so he made more than $1.5 million. But just the fact that, like, some guys, you're talking about a fight, at the Blue Horizon or, wherever, the Robert Treat Hotel in New Jersey. You're fighting there, you're making $5,000, right? Now, you don't make weight, they're going to fine you 300 or something. That's a big percentage of $5,000,
Right.
and if a guy's fighting for 5,000, he probably needs it, in the grand scheme of things, he needs it. So we don't have the luxury of, keep 3,000 out of the 5, because I'm just gonna be heavy. We don't have, you got to, I've done some. If I told you some of the things that I've done to make weight and what happened as a result, you'd say I was lying. You wouldn't believe me. You wouldn't believe how much weight I had to lose at one time. I'll tell you what, Chad Dawson, when he fought Carl Daniels, I was training Chad. He was 10 pounds over at the weigh-in, right? The night before. And we had to weigh in, like, say, Saturday morning. And the Friday night, he's 10 pounds over. So I said, man. So he's like, oh, I gotta run. I gotta go run. I said, no, man, you can't run. Like you're not gonna destroy your body and lose weight. You're not gonna do both. We're just gonna lose weight. So I had him chewing gum and spitting it out and sitting in the steam room and things like that. He lost 11 pounds. He lost one too many. He lost 11 pounds that night. And the next night, he fought the best fight of his career. He said years later, he said, that was the best I ever fought. And he stopped Carl Daniels in the 7th round. But most people, I'll give you I won't tell you the whole story, but just to give you an indication. I had a fight. I was losing weight so bad. During the fight, I was hallucinating. I thought I was in the dressing room thinking about the fight.
That's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And the fight was 10 rounds. That was in the 2nd round. I got hit with a huge right hand. And, so when you're losing weight, you don't have fluid on your brain. And so when you get hit, you get affected easier. I thought I was in the dressing room thinking about the fight. And as a matter of fact, at one point, I slipped on the water in the corner during the fight. When I was on the ground, I didn't know if he hit me or not. I didn't know how I got there. If I realized after it was the water, I slipped on the water, but I didn't know how I got there. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get up. And then when the referee wiped my gloves and told me, all right, box, I was blind. I couldn't see my opponent. I didn't know where he was. So I put my hands up like this and I walked straight and I said, he'll hit me and then I'll know where he's at. That's the kind of stuff more fighters than you would believe go through when they're making weight. It is no joke.
Well, so I guess I don't know if you really answered it. You talked about the money, but isn't there's a sense of professionalism in being a pro?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, they don't need to be professional because they're making so much money. Like Ryan Garcia, he gave up that $1.5 million like it was nothing. Like it was nothing. Like imagine Jaylen Brown for the Boston Celtics, right? Imagine they fine him $2,000 for being late to practice. He would be like, I just signed a contract for $300 million. Like you just fined me a penny. Like I don't care about the penny. I'll be late every day for the rest of my career. I won't even miss the money you fine me.
Yeah, I mean, even when titles are at stake now, you're right. There's so much money.
They give up. We don't look at Archie Moore when he fought Rocky Marciano, right? Now this is not going to ever happen again in history, I don't think. When he fought Rocky Marciano, he was getting beat up towards the end, 9th round stoppage, 8th round. The referee comes over after the 8th and says, Archie, I'm gonna stop the fight. And Archie had a way of speaking. He had a very way of speaking. He said to the ref, I'm a champion. Also, he said, let me go out like one.
Yep.
He goes out for the 9th round, gets knocked out. Right? That ain't happening. Well, Vinny Paz would do that. Vinny Paz would do that. Right? There's a few other guys, I'm sure, but not too often. There's more guys I think today that wouldn't do that. They would say, you know what? I'll get stopped and I'll get a title fight for a different title, my next fight. This is for the WBC title. No problem. I'll come back. I'll fight for the WBC fight.
Yeah, I guess it is what it is. And you just brought up the sanctioning bodies, and Artur now is undisputed. He's got the
Right.
4 main belts. When you have those belts, there's number 1 contenders and there's mandatories and everything else.
Right.
Is anyone pulling, like, does he have a mandatory coming up that he's going to have to take, or else he gets stripped?
Well, I don't know if you heard, like a few days ago, apparently the IBF said, if you don't fight this freaking guy, who, no
Right.
offense to him, no offense to the guy at all, but I don't know who the guy, I never heard of the guy. Now, he may be the greatest fighter on earth, but I never heard of him. And he's only had, I think, like 15 fights. And Artur didn't even go 5 days with the undisputed title. And they told him, they must have been frothing at the mouth. They couldn't wait to tell Artur, you got to fight this guy in 3 months or else we're going to strip you. It's like, you couldn't wait a week? You couldn't wait a week for me to enjoy this?
Michael Eifert.
No offense.
I'm
He
looking
may be
at.
great, but I never heard of him.
I've never heard of him. Michael Eifert is the number 1 contender in the IBF, and well, it's just the sanctioning bodies. Just me, they sicken me.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's boxing now. Hopefully, he keeps these belts, and he's not stripped, because the IBF, I think they like to strip people. Now I believe they're the ones that strip Canelo. Usually no one strips Canelo. So if they strip Canelo, they'll have no problem stripping anyone else.
right. Yeah.
So
it's just horrible.
it's tough to keep the belts. It really is. But
Yeah.
it's such an achievement now in the 4-belt era to be undisputed. And it seems to be happening more now than I think when you and I were kids watching boxing. Even when there were only 2, it was the WBA and WBC.
Right.
There weren't a ton of unification fights back then. There's a lot more today.
Right. And they were, they were big back then. Like a unification was huge. It was so big. And we're in a different era. It's people, everybody likes to say, oh, our era was the best. Listen, people in the 1940s, they were the best. Like, they those guys. Like, you look at a picture of Sugar Ray Robinson fight in Yankee Stadium, and there's 55,000 people there. Now we're happy with 14, at Caesar's Palace. 55, 60,000 at Yankee Stadium, or 70,000, I think it was. But nobody in their right mind is going to sit there and tell me this era is better than the 80s. You'd have to be insane. And you either didn't experience it or you just don't know what you're talking about.
Right. I think it's a little of both. I really think it's a little.
The 80s was so much better. And we even, like, with the 3-time champions, right? There was only, like, I think 7 of them, right, in history. Armstrong and Barney Ross and, whoever it was, Sugar Ray Robinson, whoever. Now there's been more in the last 25 years than there were in the previous 130 years of boxing. That's not because the people are better. Like people are like, oh, Mayweather was a 9-time champion and Pacquiao was 11-time champion. And they think, because Hagler only won 1 world title, that these guys are 11 times better than him.
Right.
They literally have they don't realize how foolish they are. They have no idea.
Well, just had the big unification, so your guy is undisputed. What do you have coming up? Do you have any fights coming up in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I've got Stephen Butler actually fighting in like 2 weeks. Up in Montreal on an ESPN card up in Montreal at the Montreal Casino we are actually going up to Massachusetts for some sparring tomorrow, and then the fight will be like in a week and a half. Yep.
You're a busy guy, Ice.
Yeah,
You're a
it's
busy
good to
guy.
be-
You get back from Saudi Arabia and you're it's right back to the grind, I guess.
yeah, good. It's good to be busy. 100%.
Yeah, it is good to be busy. I want to ask you one last question because I've had your record scrolling across the bottom.
Yeah.
Um, and is that right? You fought 49 times as a
Yes.
pro?
Yep.
Give me your toughest fight and why it was your toughest fight.
Let's see, my toughest fight. I mean, probably psychologically, the toughest fight I had was against Drake Dadsey for the IBO title. He had just beaten James Toney. People don't even know that he beat James Toney, and he beat James pretty solidly. I was there.
I remember him.
You know, he was a tough, hard punching guy. But the thing is, I didn't want to fight. I was going through weight loss again. I was losing weight. I was almost emaciated, and I was still 8.5 pounds over. I didn't weigh myself for like 2 months. I just went by how I looked. And I remember one of the kids in the gym said, "Man, Scully, you look skinny." This was like 5 days before the fight. I go, "Yeah, I know. I'm probably going to I thought I was only going to weigh about 170 for the fight. It was going to be awesome, right? And on the way to the arena the night before the weigh-in, I checked my weight for the first time in like a year. And I weighed 83 and a half. And I slammed down on the weight because I thought my trainer did it wrong. And I was mad at him. I said, "Come on, man, do it right." He said, "Man, what do you want? You're 183 and a half. Like, what do you want me to do?" I said, "Man, look at me. Look at me. Look how skinny I am." And what fighters go through. It's a long story, but I'm just going to tell you one thing I did. This is all encompassing. The fight was on ESPN. It was like 9 o'clock at night, right? So we were the main event. So I go on at 10. So I had to go over to the arena about 7 o'clock. I'm by myself in the hotel because my whole team went over because they had other fighters to work with. I spent from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I sat on my bed and I fought with myself and finally convinced myself to go fight. I was trying to go home. I said, "I'm going to go down and get my car and I'm going to drive home." And I remember thinking, my father is going to be sitting on the couch waiting for the fight to start. And by the time I get there, he'll be expecting me to go on in the ring in like 5 minutes, and I'm going to walk through the front door 2 hours away in Boston, and he's going to have a heart attack. And I didn't want to fight. I knew what was going to happen to me. I knew the weight loss had finally really damaged me. And I went over and I went to the arena. And here's I'll tell you, it's kind of funny, but the night before we had the weigh-in. This is why, and this is a lesson. People who don't know boxing or need to know a little more. This is why you don't have people in your circle before the fight that aren't boxing people. You don't have family, you don't have friends, you don't have strangers, you don't have fans, right? One of the fighters, his father-in-law, who doesn't know anything about boxing at all, and he's kind of like a harsh, one of those guys who will tell you like it is, I'm gonna tell you like it is type of guy, right? So we go to the weigh-in, and I know I look horrible. I know physically I do. But any fighter will tell you on the day of a weigh-in or a fight, if you ask them, if they just got hit by a car the day before, a tractor trailer, if you ask them how they feel, they're going to tell you they feel good. Doesn't matter if they're dying, they're going to tell you they feel good. It's just what we do, right?
Right.
So I get on the scale. I know I look bad. And I know Goody Petronelli was Drake's trainer. I know Goody knows. He can see. He's not blind. So we're walking back to the hotel, a whole bunch of us. One of the fighters says to me, "Hey, how you feel?" I say, "I feel good." His father-in-law says, he actually verbally, he says this out loud so I can hear him. He said, "You look good. You look like death warmed over." And I went, and I was so mad, but I knew he was right. And I just went, yeah. Like I wanted to choke him, right? But I didn't have the energy, but he was right. How was I going to argue with the dude? He was right. And he just had the stupidity to say it out loud. And I knew then, I said, yeah, I'm in big trouble. I'm in big trouble.
Somebody asked on here in the chat, who hit the hardest out of all the guys you fought?
You know what? Believe it or not, out of all my opponents, the hardest puncher was a guy I fought in the amateurs, but he was a great pro. Lamar Kidfire Parks.
Ooh, yes.
Lamar Parks, I actually beat Lamar twice in the amateurs at the National Golden Gloves, right? And we sparred twice as pros in Times Square gym. And just he hit so hard. I just remember at one point thinking, it's like he has a little bowling ball in his glove and he's hitting me with the bowling ball, right? And yeah, Lamar was really, he was heavy-handed, but he was so fast. He was like a Roy Jones, but punch for punch. Like Roy Jones hit really hard too, but punch for punch, one for one, Lamar hit harder. And he was like Roy Jones, but with one punch, just wrecking ball. And he when I beat him, I boxed him. I boxed and he didn't really hit me that much. But I knew because I felt the power. And then but when we sparred also, yeah, he was because we sparred 8 rounds. We went, and I remember somebody telling me after, they go, man, nobody does 8 rounds with Lamar Parks. And this was at the Times Square gym, right, in 42nd Street. And Lamar was, they say, here's the funny thing about the psychology of boxing and how your human body takes over. When I fought Drake, I was not ready for the fight mentally or physically at all. I could have been in a million places on earth before I should have been in a boxing ring, right? In the fight, and everybody said Drake Dazzy's a huge puncher. Like his power in New England was legendary. I had a guy tell me, he said, I sparred with Drake before he fought you. He said, after the sparring, I forgot how to put my shoes back on. Right? He said, that guy hit hard, right? When I fought Drake, I didn't feel anything. I did not feel his power at all. He was hitting me. I was covering up. He was loading up on me. I didn't feel anything. And I believe the human body compensates. The human body and the mind together, they know you're in distress. And whatever it does, it does. And whatever it did, it did. And I can't really say I felt his power, even though everybody who boxes with him says he's massive puncher, but I didn't feel it. But Lamar, I felt Lamar.
I haven't heard anything about Lamar Parks nowadays. Do you keep in touch with him?
Yeah. Me and him talk all the time. Yeah.
How's he doing?
He's all right. He's in South Carolina. He's big. He's healthy. He's like 230. He's big. He actually trains fighters. He's training boxers down there, and he's still around. As I understand it, he just got married not too long ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
I'm about to let you go, but I'm looking at your record.
Yep.
And you're one of the really. There's not a lot of fighters that win the last fight of their career.
That's right. That's 100% right.
You fought Cleveland Nelson. You won a split decision.
I won,
and then you were done.
There was nothing split about that fight. I can't believe one of the judges voted. No, really, I'm honest. I don't know how anybody, but I was on fire. That was one of my best fights in my career. He was a good fighter. He only had one loss, and I remember him as an amateur. When I won the Ohio State Fair as an open class fighter, he lost in the finals to Revea Springs as a junior Olympian. So he was around for as long as I was. He was out of Detroit. He was a good fighter, but I was really on my game that night. And I tell you, how boxing is a funny game. I was on my game. I was sharp. I really felt good. And I remember distinctly in the locker room after and in the hallway outside the locker room, I remember saying to myself, this is great. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, I'm back. Like, I'm going to get some big fights now, and this is going to be crazy. And over the next year and a half, I had 9 fights in a row fall out on me. Like, literally 9 fights. And the last one was with Elvir Mariki. And And I'll tell you what happened. In the meantime, because my fights kept falling out, and I'm sparring every day, I'm training. I started training Lawrence Claybay because he had a fight coming up, and I'm like, all right, I'll train you. You know, I don't have a fight coming up, so I start training him, and we win a fight, and we have another fight coming up, and he gets a fight for say June 4th, right? His fight is June 4th. I said, all right, good, let's get ready. The same day, I get a call to fight Elvir Mariki, and the fight was going to be June 3rd. I initially accepted the fight, and I said in my mind, I was like, I'll just train Claybay, and then I'll go to my fight the next day. You know, like that was how much I wanted to fight. But I thought about it for a week, and I called the promoter. I said, listen, man, I have a responsibility to this guy. Like I have to train him. I can't be sidetracked. And that was the last fight.
You answered the question. I was going to say, I was leading into that because most fighters don't win their last fight, and you did.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, why did you stop? And you just explained.
Right. Yeah. And
why
it's
you
cool,
stopped.
but I'm very aware of that because when the first book I ever read, cover to cover, was the 1952 ring record book. Right.
Oh, man.
I read it cover to cover, and what I noticed, and with Willie Pep, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, and all of them, they all lost their last fight. Because I used to read all the records, and they all lost their last fight, and I was very conscious of that. I wanted to keep fighting, but it's always like, man, like, am I going to go till I lose again, or what am I'm just too old and I lose again, or what do I do? Like the bright side of it is I'm going to go out. All the guys I looked up to, none of them went out with a win.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's really true. I mean, there's many more that went out with a loss than with a win.
100%.
And you got Cleveland Nelson on your record. Should have been a unanimous decision, but it was a split.
I was really sharp in that fight. I was really sharp. Yeah.
You know, and I'm looking at Cleveland Nelson. That was funny thing. That was the last fight of his career.
Here's the thing. Something happened. I never found out what happened. He was supposed to fight Kelvin Davis after that, the main event on ESPN. And I remember thinking, oh, let me check this fight out. Like, I hope he wins. You know, it'll look good for me if he wins. And I don't know if you remember Kelvin Davis, Kelvin Concrete Davis. He was a contender.
Yep.
He was supposed to fight him. And like the day before the fight, something happened. The fight got canceled, and Cleveland never fought again. And I never found out what it was. But obviously something happened. He must have got injured or something.
Well, I mean, your last fight was against each other, and you came out with the win.
Yeah.
Now, I know you said that, you know, a lot of fights fell through. Did you ever just want to get to that magic number of 50, or did that not matter? Because you're 49.
I did. I wanted to get. I'll tell you what happened. I wanted to get to it, and like I say, with the Claybay thing, I would have fought Mariki, and but I had to, commit to him, and then my wife and I, right during that time, we got together, and we got deeper and deeper, and I mean, like before when I was boxing, that I never got into a serious relationship because, I didn't want to be sidetracked so much,
Right.
And so when her and I were getting, really deeper, I was like, man, everything, I must be a sign. There's signs. It's Claybay, and I went out with a win, and I'm in this relationship, and I'm getting older, and I think about it sometimes. I mean, I would have liked to have gotten to that one. Yeah, I would have actually liked to. I had 38 wins. I would have liked to got 40 wins. 40. But at least 50 fights would have been cool.
Yeah. Well, I got one more because I kept you for an hour, but the last one, somebody asked. And I've asked you this before, but people might not remember. Teach wants to know, how'd you get the nickname Iceman?
Funny thing. In reality, it had nothing to do with boxing, but it ended up being a boxing nickname. In my neighborhood, I don't know what about other people, but in my neighborhood, in my school, when I was in junior high school, we used to make fun of each other's heads. Everybody was like egghead, rockhead, big head, and
biscuit head.
Right, biscuit head, right. And, there was a kid, Kerwin Khan. We called him Nappy Head, right? He was Nappy Head. And Al Graham lived up the street from me, and he had a hook head. Like his head was huge in the back, right? It was huge. And so we called him Hookhead. He used to say my head was square. He was going to this day. He actually passed away a few months ago, but to this day, last time we talked, he still calls me Square. Hey, Square, what's up, man? What are you up? If he calls me on the phone, Square, what's up, man? What are you doing? Nothing. So he called me Square. So I have a videotape. November 1985, I'm at the Agora Ballroom. I'm fighting Robert Perez at the Agora Ballroom in an amateur fight. And you can hear them in the audience, my friends in the audience saying, come on, blockhead. Come on, blockhead. You got a head like a block of ice. Come on, blockhead. Come on, ice block. And it just, every terminology they could think of. And the ice block from the square head resulted in my nickname.
Because when you think of it like Iceman, you think, man, that guy's unflappable, man. Like he's never going to get nervous. He's the Iceman.
Right, Stone Cold. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everybody thinks that. But yeah,
right.
Albert Graham gave me that name.
That's awesome. All right, listen, I kept you over an hour. I appreciate your time, man. I want to talk to you again sometime before the Usyk Fury rematch. But I'll be checking out in 2 weeks. So you said in 2 weeks, Butler's fighting. It's on ESPN?
It's ESPN show. Yeah, hopefully he's one of the fights. But yeah, he's the ESPN show at the Montreal Casino. All
right. Well, good luck in that one. And Scully, I appreciate your time. The Iceman. Now you all know why they call him the Iceman, which is a great story. But brother, I'll talk soon. Congrats again to Artur and to you. And I look forward to talking to you again soon, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, sir.
So there, it was the Iceman. Talking boxing. There's nothing like talking to John Scully about boxing. Nothing like it, man. I could talk to that guy for hours just about his career. I mean, I really didn't want to keep him for more than an hour. But like Lance says, always enjoy listening to Scully share his thoughts. He's the best interview. He's the best interview that there is. But I'm out of here because I'm married just like Scully, and I do these shows for an hour. I try to do these shows for an hour. I would like to get my man Bruce. I appreciate you. Man, a lot of people I didn't get in, and I know some people had some technical questions. I got you, Brucey. I appreciate you, my friend. When I meet you in person, I'm going to spend twice that amount on getting you some food. I promise. My man, Squared Circle, Scully's an OG. Scully is the man. Scully is super cool, and I could talk to that dude. I could talk to that dude all night for real. But there you have it. You know what? It is Thursday now. I don't think I'm already in trouble because I'm on this for more than an hour. So, Thursday is usually Clapback Thursday with Oscar, but I'm looking at his Instagram and there is no clapback for this week from Oscar De La Hoya. So I thought maybe we could go out with some Oscar, but I guess that's the case. More Iceman, indeed. Don't want no food, LOL. Whatever you want. I'm spending twice the amount on whatever you want when we meet, Brucey. But yeah, Iceman is a good dude, and I was supposed to speak to him last week. I got caught up doing some stuff. Ooh, I do want to play one thing, and I can only play a little bit of it. So I'm working on a, let's see. There we go. Let me stop it when it comes on. All right. So I'm working on a boxing doc series, and it's not announced yet. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. It's not announced yet. But hopefully in the next month or two, it'll be announced as a new boxing series. Where simple premise, you pick a good fight and you interview the fighters and you look back on it and you do a doc. We have one of the documentaries finished, and it's on the 1992 amazing fight, which a lot of people didn't see, I think, Kevin Kelly and Troy Dorsey, they fought on USA Network. Unbelievable fight. We did a doc on it. I got to go to Mansfield, Texas, and I interviewed Troy Dorsey and went to Vegas. That's where Kevin Kelly is. I got to meet their families. Incredible experience. But I do want to play part of a trailer. One of the fights that we're doing, one of the docs, is on the Tim Bradley, Ruslan Provodnikov fight. So, play a little bit of that.
12 rounds for the championship, WBO welterweight of the world. Touch him up, good luck, come out of the bell.
When I think back of the fight, I would say hell on earth. I would say the most intense fight that I've ever had in my entire career.
Well, we had a general sense that we were covering a highly qualified, skilled boxer who had been given a win over Manny Pacquiao the year before against a pure brawler. Ruslan Provodnikov was the kind of ultra-determined, almost maniac opponent in the ring.
Когда Вадим мне сказал, что Руслан предлагает бой с Тимоти Брэдли, вы не представляете, насколько я был счастлив. Я этот шанс ждал долгих 8 лет. Долгих 8 лет.
While Tim Bradley was a champion, the controversies surrounding his split decision victory over Manny Pacquiao 9 months earlier continued to linger.
The most hateful remark for me was that I wasn't a true champion. That night I wanted to show everybody that I was a true champion.
From the opening minute of the first round, you could see, oh my God.
High action fight turned into a pit bull fight for real.
I didn't know much about Ruslan Provodnikov, but I found out real quickly about Ruslan in the first round. That's for damn sure.
Herrera, he outsmarted me in big right hand. Big right hand by Provodnikov. And Bradley is not going to be charged with a knockdown, and even though he falls back.
I ain't never been hit like that in my entire career, in my entire life.
It was just a matter of time before he knocked him out. So I thought.
Another right hand lands for Provodnikov. They are trading shots. Balls. Now here comes Bradley, whipping Provodnikov face to face now.
The only thing that was going through my mind was getting this dude up off of me and kick his ass.
Real good hook to the body, and Provodnikov is hurt from that punch.
You don't need to be trained like this. Look at this. A right hand by Provodnikov. His legs are almost gone.
One shot could put him down here.
Unbelievable.
It's a Rocky movie. That was Rocky.
Wow.
Верил, что я сделал как минимум достаточно для того, чтобы стать сегодня чемпионом мира.
When you see two fighters go at each other with that kind of passion, will, and courage, this was perfect.
I didn't know if I won or not. I just know that I was happy as hell the fight was over.
This is Return to the Ring, Bradley versus Provodnikov.
Man, I had to play the whole thing because I also cut that. I edited that, produced it. Got to interview everybody in it, so you could just see the people. Got to interview Tim Bradley, Ruslan Provodnikov, Freddie Roach, Jim Lampley. We have not started production on the doc yet, but it's going to be incredible. You get to see most of the fight. We'll show almost the whole fight. And you'll get to see hear some stories, and you'll get to catch up with these fighters and see where they are today. And the very first one we did was Troy Dorsey and Kevin Kelly. And I don't know when it's coming at. I don't know where it's going to be, but at some point there is going to be an announcement. And my hopes with this doc series, I got to be on the best boxing doc series I've ever worked on, Legendary Nights with HBO. I got to be on that, not as a producer, but as a PA. And that was the genesis. That was what I was trying to do with this. Now, HBO, there was no HBO budget for this. This is a much different scenario. I think there were 3 of us working on this, where at HBO, we had a separate team in a separate building working on those. But it's been, so far, it's been an incredible experience. Getting to interview some of these fighters who I never met, some I had, like Chris Algieri and Tim Bradley. And I've developed friendships with over the years, Freddie Roach. I got to go to LA twice over the summer to interview him. So I'm super excited. It's going to be called Return to the Ring. and Kelly Pavlik is another one I talked to. So that's going to be coming out at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this year or early next year, but it's hopefully going to be an ongoing series. And that was just a little taste of Tim Bradley and Ruslan Provodnikov. Super cool getting to interview Ruslan Provodnikov. He only speaks Russian. Vadim, his manager when he's a fighter, set that up. So shout out to him. Very excited. I'm out of here. It's an hour and 20 minutes. My wife's going to say, I thought it was only going to be an hour. But I had to, when you have Iceman on, you have to talk boxing. Like, I couldn't help it. So anyway, listen, make sure you subscribe. Artur Beterbiev, undisputed. Iceman. Bradley had to learn to speak again. Listen, and that'll be in the doc. He's always been on record as saying he was damaged from that fight, and it was serious damage, and it took him a long time to overcome what he went through. It's a rough sport, and I was a producer at HBO. My very first 24/7 that I produced, and that's why it was Tim Bradley against Manny Pacquiao. I did the Tim Bradley side. And I first met Tim when he was fighting Devin Alexander, because I did a piece and I met both of them. So I go back with Tim, and I'll tell you this. Nowadays, he's still out in Cali, and he is a family man. He was a family man back then, but he fought. Now he doesn't fight. He's a commentator. He is all family. He's all family. Like, to see him as a dad, it's an awesome thing. But listen, I'm out. We're going to talk boxing soon. Not a whole lot going on this weekend. But we got a great fight coming up in December. We got that heavyweight fight, which we'll talk about more. But make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon.